It's a sea creature, and it goes by the name of the loggerhead turtle. And you could put this sea creature anywhere in a nation, whether it's East Asia, Africa, or India. Anywhere. And it'll find its way back to the same shore that it was born on. So that way it can hatch their eggs on the same shore that it was born on. But interestingly enough, how do they know to get back to that very same Pacific shore? Well, I'll tell you, it's because their hearts are connected to the electric magnetic field of the universe. Likewise, the birds fly south in the winter. When the Egyptians came across the Nile River, Anunnaki and the Nefertiti, those tribe of Egyptians, those pyramids was already there. How did they know to go pacifically over the Nile River? Again, because their hearts was connected to the electric magnetic field of the universe. Unfortunately, that's no longer a factor. But what's more disturbing is our hearts are not connected to one another. And we're losing that connection with humanity. It's a lady by the name of Maria Gambina. She wrote this book called The Living Goddess. And in this book, she talked about how there were civilizations where there were just women and there were peace in the world. And she was an archaeologist. And when she was digging up the bones and the artifacts, she was discovering that they had no signs of strife and war, and battle on the planet. Of course, they discredited her and broke the figurines to try to bury history. In the mythologies, they speak of this draconian, reptilian, dragon-like serpent, and how they split the chromosomes to create duality, man and woman. And the whole purpose of love is for us to find our way back to one another. And that Kundalini energy, serpent energy, can rise and unlock us within. If no nation can rise higher than this woman, that explains why they keep her so low, dumbed down. Long live the days of the virtuous women that ruled on the Iron Throne with elegance, modesty, and servitude. But less is more, mighty as a lion, and sweet as a dove, the lotus if you will. Through her king's reign, and when we declare war on the opposition, we look back and get permission, because we understand your intuition could forecast the whole mission. Now pay attention.
Tonight is a historic occasion, the world premiere of the Civilization of the Goddess. I guess I don't have to say it's Maria Gimbutas' new book. This monumental work is a wealth of information on the spirit of a people and their accomplishments. A civilization Maria's called Old Europe. They did not fight wars, they did not murder or enslave people or poison nature. That is not her definition of a civilization.
and settlements, stratified settlements where life continued for about 1,000 years. And nearly all of my excavated sites were like this, like layer cakes, yes, where you have at the bottom, say, 7th millennium, on top you have, well, 4th or 3rd or say 5th. I think the most exciting thing for me is the sum of evidence, not one find. And this sum is what I did with the symbolism, with the goddess, deciphering of symbols, deciphering of types of goddesses worshipped. Also discovery of temples, which I discovered also. Well, to see how comfortable our ancestors lived was a pleasure. To see how spacious houses were, how beautiful the location was. That was all. So these are some aspects, but as I say, the sum of the life, say, 7,000 or 8,000 or 9,000 years ago was, for me, probably the greatest joy.
But what
To some scholars, culture was born when men learned to master women and nature. This definition excludes past cultures in which androcratic societies are not represented, yet whose way of life seems to have had a higher quality than the androcratic societies. Such was old Europe and its heirs, especially in the Aegean and the Mediterranean area, particularly the Minoan culture of Crete in the 2nd millennium. These civilizations enjoyed a long period of uninterrupted, peaceful living and blossoming art. The non-material aspects of culture, artistic creation, aesthetic achievements, values concerned with life, ideology, and philosophy, which make life meaningful and enjoyable, these are what should be stressed. Well, first of all, the quality of life. I feel that they had a higher quality of life than we have today, or than our ancestors of the Bronze Age had. And the lack of weapons, the lack of fortifications of hill forts, for instance, this shows that people for thousands and thousands of years could have lived in peace without much conflict between each other.
The most striking thing to me, and I'll always remember this moment about her work, is when I learned that human beings had lived in peace. It was a truly shocking, radical moment to me, because I bought into the myths of Western culture. There's always been wars. I mean, we basically live by the myth of the conquering hero. We are a warrior society that lives in wars and has been living in wars for like 50 generations or whatever. And when I realized, and I thought it's in our genes, it's in our blood, that people had lived in peace, it was truly a changing point in my life.
And the other thing is that the egalitarianism between the sexes existed, and that is visible especially from grave goods and burial rites. People somehow didn't glorify individuals at that time. In burial we can see that all female or male were equal, and there was no ranking. In death we were all equal. There are many books on, for instance, the origin of war, in which the beginning of the agricultural period is considered to be also a beginning of warrior society, which is nonsense in my mind. This is a distortion of actual evidence. Such statements are illustrations that general writers are not informed about the actual evidence. The goddess civilization took keen delight in the natural wonders of this world. Well, I would say matriarchy is the mirror image of patriarchy, and patriarchy we can also call androcracy. This is a domination by men. And in matriarchy, I do not see that men were suppressed by females. They were also very important in the society. So therefore, I tend to use the term matristic instead of matriarchal, or just use matrilineal system. That is what I see that it existed. However, the queen or priestess was on top, and she probably had a council of women, which is very well evidenced in later historical times and also in mythology and in archaeological finds.
Maria's legacy is, and continues to be, that she is forcing society to think along a whole new paradigm. It isn't the paradigm of male hero and submissive female. It's the paradigm of the power of the female. Not power over the male, because the two figure equally in creation, and what is life all about but the magic of creation.
I describe the social structure of old Europe as matrilineal, avuncular, endogamic, ruled by a queen priestess and assisted by a council of women and assisted by her brother or uncle, who was an overseer of trade, of architecture, of navigation, of mining, and so on.
It's been very important for women to reclaim their history and to have a legitimating symbol of their creativity, the creator as female goddess.
The goddess, in all her manifestations, was a symbol of the unity of all life in nature and the whole universe. Her power was in water and stone, in moon, sun, and fire, in animals and birds, snakes and fish, in hills, trees, and flowers, in bees and butterflies. Hence, the holistic perception of the sacredness and mystery of all there is on earth.
I think one of the broadest applications of Maria's work is in the whole ecological movement, which is something that most people realize, that we have to have a different relationship with the planet. And Maria's work really gives a mythological basis, a historical and mythological basis to relate to the earth, because she gives us this traditions of the goddess who is like nature, cosmos. She's one. She's all the forces of this dynamic life energy.
She's nature. She's nature itself. Nature which creates, which is seasonal, which is rhythmical, associated with moon phases. And the goddess, mostly what we see is the spring goddess, the summer goddess, the fall goddess, the winter goddess. So she is a seasonal goddess, And she is also Earth herself. And, well, her powers are everywhere, in plants and in stones and in hills and in grass and in flowers, wherever she is there.
We have been taught in our Western society to think about birth and death. Birth is good, death is bad, period. And she is forcing us, with our recognition of the functions of the goddess, to think of their real functions, which were power over birth, over life and the living, over death, and over rebirth. In this, Maria is linking herself with millennia of Eastern thought that has known this all along, but she is one of the people who is forcing the Western world to accept the much more gratifying notion of the life continuum.
The main motif of goddess religion was the celebration of life energy, the life force that fuses male and female, generating life and accepting death as part of the cycle of life. I say not male or female, but both together. And we happen to live in time which is the end of an era. The end of the 5,000 years of what James Joyce has termed the nightmare. And the end of the 20th century, a century of wars, tortures, and massacres. As Thomas Berry says, we have to reinvent the human species or perish. We must re-examine history and start putting back some parts that we have left out, namely the earth, the body, the feminine, and the unconscious.